So, hello everyone, this is Bhante Joe here, and I'm just here outside of a solitary kuti near the village of Tanjantena, and thought to record a short Dhamma discussion for the internet. So I thought that maybe could start with just a little meditation, so I can lean forward a bit and arch the spine, and look about 3 feet in front, and close our eyes. And can focus in on the breath. Can know when it's coming in, and know when it's going out. If we breathe in a long breath, can just know I'm breathing in a long breath. And if we breathe in a short breath, can just know I'm breathing in a short breath. And can focus in on the breath at the tip of the nose. Observing the sensation of the breath as it comes in and as it goes out. And from the tip of the nose, can let the breath, or can let awareness expand till it fills one's whole body. One of the metaphors they give for spreading feelings throughout the body in the canon is like a lake with an underground source. And the water comes up from the underground source and fills the whole lake. And in a similar way, one can let awareness expand until it fills one's whole body. And with awareness filling the body, one can practice whole body breathing. And when practicing whole body breathing, it can be good to change one's perception of the breath so that it's not just air that one is pulling in and out of the lungs, but it's an energy that's all around and coursing through one's body. And it's possible to pull it into and out of every pore, almost like the body was a big sponge. So on the in-breath, one can think whole body. On the out-breath, one can think whole body. And before we finish meditating, can spread thoughts of goodwill, wishing may all beings all around everywhere be happy and at ease. May they put in place the causes necessary to be happy and at ease. And one can make the mind infinite, can make it unbounded, all the way to the ends of the universe and beyond, in every dimension. May all beings all around everywhere be happy and at ease. And can open our eyes and do a short Dhamma discussion for the internet. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. So hope that everybody's doing well wherever it might be. And yeah, we just had some rain here. It's approaching, they call the Vasa season, or the rainy season. And so it's nice to see some rain come down and maybe start to fill up the creeks. And was asked a question a while ago. It was about, basically kind of paraphrase, it was about how does one deal with fear? And is there anything that I can do in my meditation practice to help overcome problems with fear? And so fear is a kind of, it's an interesting emotion because it can have both a positive and negative aspect. It can have an aspect that's positive in the sense that fear is there in order to warn people about danger. As if people didn't have any fear, then they would just kind of blithely go into dangerous situations and and end up in trouble. But at the same time, fear is a type of emotion that if one doesn't have a certain level of control over it, then it can be a bit cyclical, or create a vicious cycle, in the sense that each time one thinks of whatever it is that might be afraid of, then that amplifies the fear and increases the thinking, which amplifies the fear further. It creates a kind of vicious cycle that can lead to needless anxiety and panic and these kind of things. So one of the best solutions for this, and the tools that the Buddha gives, is basically for one to learn to keep one's mind in the present moment. So a lot of the time when fear arises, it's usually based on a future possibility that one can't control, and one doesn't know if it will come true or not. But usually it starts when one extrapolates some situation that's happened in the present and extends it into the future. So if one's present is going well, one just does a really great presentation at work or something like this, or has a good meditation or something. It's okay, the future gets expanded based on that. What's going on in the present? Oh, I had a great presentation, my meditation went well. In the future, my career is going to be excellent, something like this. Or, my meditation went well, in the future all these wonderful possibilities appear. And then at the same time, if something negative happens, if somebody we try our best and something somehow slip up and something negative happens in one's interactions with somebody, one says something wrong or is worried that one might have offended somebody, and this kind of thinking goes on and creates this terrible future where whatever interaction one had then are just going to get worse, or creates this future, maybe not even a future very far away, where that person is offended and X, Y, and Z will happen because of that. So the interesting thing about this type of fear, this fear based on projecting from the present moment into the future, is that it's very often wrong. Quite often, these kind of projections don't turn out exactly as one thinks, especially based on what's happening in the present moment. Of course, there is a certain reason to this fear. If one says something out of anger, says something unskillfully to a person, if one didn't spend enough time preparing for the presentation, or if one did some bad deed and one's meditation was poor, then if one doesn't notice these things and correct them, then indeed in the future they can escalate. But what one can do to counter this kind of tendency to project a future which is terrible and then worry about it right now is to remind oneself that these things haven't happened yet. And if one noticed a mistake that one did, then one will try changing that in the future. And from that point, just try it. One can try to keep one's mind in the present moment. So whatever meditation object one might have that one is checked out and found conducive for one's personality, if at a moment when this kind of fear and anxiety over the future arises, it's okay, well, what can I do about that? What is there that I can do in the future? I won't, prepare more for the presentation. I won't snap out of anger. And I won't break my sila, so my meditation will be good. Whatever went wrong, okay, in the future, I won't do that next time. And then one learns to put down the future after that. This is the extent to which one can set up that intention. And then one returns one's mind to one's meditation object. One returns one's mind to one's practice. And this is actually what sometimes will set up the best conditions in the future anyway. If one is calm and at ease and kind of mindful in the present moment, then this is what when that future becomes the present, this is what helps one to react skillfully. So it also helps to stop this kind of proliferation that goes off into the future, because the mind doesn't tend to just stop at one thing. It's always rushing into the future, rushing into the past. And when it rushes into the future, rushes into the past, it tends to create these kind of fantasy worlds, which can turn bad. So I can't remember what it was, a while ago I was reading, I think they know in psychology, when a person keeps, talking for a long time or thinking for a long time, then the tendency is that the talk or the thinking will turn negative. It will become something negative. So there's a kind of certain cutoff point beyond which is kind of when thoughts proliferate or talking proliferates, it tends to go into these negative topics and dwell. So the benefit of being able to keep one's mind in the present moment with whatever topic of meditation one might have, or just trying to keep it on what one's doing is the present moment, is that when one trains in this way, then this type of proliferation gets cut off. And that can help to cut off a large portion of one's fear, anxiety, and worry. But the other flip side of this is that there's a portion of this fear, anxiety, and worry that can be useful, kind of especially if one, for example, for monks who live in the forest, it's useful to have a certain amount of, one might not use the word fear or anxiety, people use the word like caution, but this is, it's part of the same emotion. It's just maybe a portion that hasn't gone overboard and gone into proliferation. So a skillful use of fear is to know when it's alerting us to something and to know the appropriate bounds with which to keep our mind. So it's said for monks who are, it's said that if a monk becomes an arahant, he can't follow a bias based on fear. But what that tends to be, what that's interpreted as by some, is that what that means is that the emotion, the information of fear can still come up, but he won't follow it. He or she won't follow it into this proliferation. And kind of, it warns one to take care. So there was a story about Ajahn Chah where he was riding in the back of this, in Thailand they used to set up these trucks with these kind of bars, and when they had to go to a big event, everybody would jump on the truck and hold onto this bar. And one person noticed that Ajahn Chah was holding onto the bar so tightly that his knuckles became white, and thought, okay, well, that means that he had this kind of sense of fear. So the way that this is generally interpreted is it's basically is a caution. It's kind of even if one is developed in one's practice, or even if one finishes one's practice, one still needs to have this emotion of caution to warn one when to be careful. So this type of fear is not the type of thing that one wants to practice to totally cut out, so that this warning signal never arises. And there are people who do this with maybe like dangerous sports or dangerous hobbies, or getting addicted to dangerous thrills and these kind of things. And if one does this very often, then this warning sign, this warning signal that goes off in one's mind gets dampened and dampened and dampened through practice, and it can fail to show up when something's really dangerous and might seriously harm or kill one. So one wants to basically have this attitude of knowing the proper limits of fear. When the emotion of fear arises, one can evaluate, is this something useful or not? Is this something that's cautioning me about something important? Or is this something where I'm worrying about a future that I can't control and that probably won't happen? So if one can learn to differentiate between these two types of fear, then using wisdom in this way, one can also help to cut it out, because one can learn to know when it's going overboard, and one can analyze it in such a way, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense, I'm not going to believe this. And then again, return to the present moment, return to one's meditation topic. So in this way, these tools that the Buddha gives us, learning to keep in the present moment, and learning to use this faculty of wisdom or panya to determine when fear is skillful, when it's unskillful, and then learning when to put it down. If it's something that we can change in the future, that we did wrong, okay, I did that wrong, in the future I won't do it again. And then putting it down, putting the future down and returning to the present. And if it's something that one can't change, that's already in the past, then definitely one can definitely put it down, because the past is kind of impossible to go back to. So with regards to fear, these two things can help to keep it in its proper bounds, so that this danger signal of caution can still warn one when one is walking in the forest and might step on a snake, but won't necessarily have to go off into thinking, I should never go into the forest because there's snakes there and I'm going to step on a snake. So keeping fear in the proper bounds in these ways can help one to live one's life in a way that's safe, but also to not let the mind go out in ways that will stop one from doing things that are important but might have some element of danger, and also to stop one from worrying about things that one can't change anymore, or about things that haven't happened yet. Okay, so I think leave that for reflection, and hope that everybody has a great day wherever it might be, and wishing all the blessings of Dhamma practice.